As this year comes to an end, I think it's a great time to reflect on the past decade of video games and ask the question, what was the best game, the ultimate playing experience of the past decade? Is it one or is it multiple? And truly, why do we love it and what can we learn from it in the future? This is Low Poly Mode, this is Game Talk, and I'm Harry Gray, and this is trying to find out the best game of the decade. So how do we go about doing this sort of thing? This is 10 years worth of video games to compile into one video. Well, I've got a sort of simple system and this is how it's going to work. So first I took to Reddit and asked the users what their favourite game was of the past 10 years and more importantly, why it was their favourite. I tallied that down onto a document and then I looked at the Game Awards. So taking both of those lists into account, we then put them together and see if anything overlaps or if there's any common patterns to look at. And that is how we got this list. So let's begin with my Reddit questionnaire. I was given roughly 20 games in response, some of them predictable, some not so. So this is how the list goes, voted for by you, potentially. First off, Red Dead Redemption 2 with 4 votes, God of War with 2 votes, Dark Souls 3 with 2 votes, Faster Than Light with 1 vote, Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentina with 1 vote, Bloodborne with 2 votes, The Witcher 3 with 4 votes, Star Wars Battlefront 2015, that was my vote, that only got 1 vote. I'm not surprised, I love that game though. Next up, Horizon Zero Dawn with 1 vote, King of Fighters XIII, which is like 13 I think, with 1 vote, The Last of Us with 4 votes, Breath of the Wild with 2 votes, Portal 2 with 1 vote, Persona 5 with 1 vote, Journey with 1 vote, Smash Ultimate with 2 votes, GTA 5 with 2 votes, and Devil May Cry 5 with 1 vote. So from that list we can tell that there are some high scoring games that were predictable, you know, Red Dead Redemption 2, Breath of the Wild, The Last of Us, those were great games, but we knew they were probably going to be on this list. It's sort of interesting though because we're missing some quite big games on the list, you know, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, you know, Spider-Man PS4 isn't on the list, Overwatch, Celeste perhaps, and okay, no Fortnite. Thank God for that. But to be honest, I'm sort of happy to see this. It's good to see not the big corporation games sort of overruling everyone's thoughts. We have some great indie games in here like Journey, which is just great to see that the indie games have this influence on people that it's the game of the decade for them. So far in the lead, we have a joint tie between The Witcher 3, The Last of Us, and Red Dead Redemption 2. All great games. So now let's take into account the Game Awards. Now, ran into a little problem about this. The Game Awards started in 2014. That means we had like 3 years of no Game of the Year awards. So what I did is I looked at GameSpot and IGN's Game of the Year videos and articles and just compiled them into the list. From 2014 onwards, it is actually the Game Awards. Just thought I'd get that out there. So let's begin all the way back in 2010. In 2010 it was Red Dead Redemption 1. In 2011 it was Skyrim. In 2012, Journey. In 2013, of course, it's The Last of Us. In 2014, interestingly, the Dragon Age Inquisition. In 2015, The Witcher 3. In 2016, Overwatch. In 2017, Breath of the Wild. In 2018, it was God of War. And finally, as we all know, in 2019, it's Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. That's really interesting. We have 2 games that won Game of the Decade, apparently, The Witcher 3 and The Last of Us. Those are both great games, but apparently nobody could decide either one of them. That's really interesting. So what make those games great? What make them the game of the last 10 years? So let's start with The Witcher 3, the first pick for Game of the Decade. So everyone says that this game is just polished. It is an amazing combination of graphics, story, action. Everything just works like a finely oiled machine. This game wasn't a beta release or an in-progress build that would be patched later on in its lifetime. It added excellent DLC content that kept the game fresh. What's the lesson to learn from this game? It's that games should be released completely finished, not fixed after release, but to sell a polished game, because that's what makes games their best. Even if it means pushing back that release date, ship those games when they're finished. So what about that other game, The Last of Us? What's so great about that? Well, the main point I've seen from this game, and the responses I've had, is that The Last of Us is a masterclass in character development. The characters seem to bring people back to the game and they interest the players so much that they fall in love with them.
So what do we learn from that? It's that character design and writing is a key part of any video game. More time should be spent on developing characters so we get more Ellie and less Navi. I swear to God, I'm going to kill that fairy one day.
Well, that whole list of games was awesome. Particularly, I quite like that Battlefront 2015. If you haven't played it, it's awesome, and it's why I voted it for my best game of the decade. If yours wasn't in the list, and if you didn't vote, comment it down below what your favourite game was of the past 10 years. I'd be really interested to see, and also if you voted for The Witcher 3 or The Last of Us, or something completely different. Thank you very much for watching. This is probably the last video of 2019, so I hope you had a great Christmas, I hope you have a great new year, and we'll see you in 2020. I've been Harry Gray for Low Poly Mode, and can you do me a favour? Can you have a great day? Thank you.